Hi everyone, welcome back to Save Our Grades program, Financial Management course. Today, we will practice Chapter 5, Discounted Cash Flow Valuation. Exercise number 1 will require us to use the CF function in the BA calculator. So first of all, let's read through the question together. You are offered the opportunity to put some money away for retirement. You will receive 6 annual payments of $10,000 each beginning in 20 years. How much would you be willing to invest today if you desire an interest rate of 7%? And our duty is to answer 3 questions. First, we have to draw the timeline. We have to show the equation. And lastly, we have to tell what are the inputs for the financial calculator. As you can see in the question, the second sentence, you will receive 6 annual payments of $10,000 each beginning in 20 years. Let's analyze it together. What does it mean? It means after 20 years starting from the current time, which is year 0. Year 0, the current time. 20 years after it, you will start to receive 6 payments in a row. So how do we draw the timeline? It's just easy like this. So year 0, which is the current time, year 1, year 2, and then ... What does this ... stand for? ... stand for years 2 until years 19. Okay, because obviously we don't have time, right, to draw everything, so we can just put the ... And then starting from year 20, this will be the first payment of $10,000. Year 21, the second payment. Year 22, the third payment. Respectively, you receive another 3 $10,000 payments. So in total, there are 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. 6 times of $10,000. So this is how you draw the timeline. So how about the equation? So as I have explained in the previous video, NPV is equal to the difference between the cash outflow and the cash inflow. The difference between cash outflow and the cash inflow. And we know that the cash outflow is always a negative number, right? Because you have to invest something in order to wait for the return. So how about this exercise? The question is, how much would you be willing to invest today if you desire an interest rate of 7%? So if you guys remember, in the previous video, I have explained that we only accept an investment when the NPV is greater or equal to 0. So for this exercise, the question is very obvious. They ask you, how much would you be willing to invest? So how much would you be willing to invest? The answer is you will be willing to invest if the cash outflow is equal to the cash inflow. Why? Because when the cash outflow is equal to the cash inflow, the sum of the cash outflow and the cash inflow will be equal to 0. Why? Right? And when it is equal to 0, it means that you can accept the investment. Now that I have already explained the reason why cash outflow has to be equal to the cash inflow in order to make the NPV equal to 0. And look again at the question. The only piece of information that we can exploit is $10,000 of payment, which means this is a cash inflow. For this kind of exercise, we need to find the present value of the cash inflow. So we can write something like this: present value of cash inflow equal to the present value of cash outflow. And this one equal to $10,000 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 20 plus 10,000 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 21 plus ... until $10,000 divided by 1 plus R to the power of 25. So why do I have this equation? The reason is very simple. Just a reminder, we have to discount every future cash flow back to the current time with year 0. And the first payment only takes place after 20 years of time. Which means that if you want to calculate the present value of this $10,000, you have to discount it back 20 years until today. Therefore, you have to take $10,000 divided by 1 plus R to the power of the period, the number of periods, which is 20 years. And similarly, year 21, year 22, year 23, year 24, and year 25. So the next n gonna be 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 respectively. Moving on to the next part of the problem, we have to write down what are the inputs for the financial calculator. And if you guys forget the steps, I highly recommend you guys to watch through again the video number 1. So the first step is to activate the CF function by pressing the CF button. Then we press 2 and D, C, E, C, in order to clear every previous work used to incur on the calculator. At the same time, on the screen, CO1 will pop up. CO1 stands for cash outflow number 1. In the exercise, we don't see any piece of information available related to the cash outflow, which means we put 0. We press 0. Enter, go down. Then they will ask, what is the CF1? Cash flow number 1. So cash flow number 1 stands for cash flow after 1 year starting from the current time. But the first payment occurs after 20 years. So the CF1 is also equal to 0. Enter, go down. And because we know that the payment only takes place after 20 years of time, so in the first 19 years, there is absolutely nothing. So the frequency of CF1 should be equal to 19. Enter, go down. How about CF2? Cash flow number 2. So cash flow number 2 is equal to $10,000. Why? Because after 19 years, we finally receive something, right? So cash flow number 2 is equal to 10,000. We press 10,000. Enter and go down. And because we will receive this payment 6 times in a row, so the frequency of it will be equal to 6. We enter. Now, we need to calculate the present value. How do we calculate the present value? We use the NPV function. So we press the NPV button. And after we press this button, the calculator will ask us to type in the interest rate. So take a look at the exercise. they mentioned that the interest rate is 7%. So for here, we will press 7. Just a reminder, please don't put the percent. Then we press enter again. Go down. Here, we press CPT. And the NPV will pop up. That will be the answer. So let's do it together on the BA calculator. First step, we press the CF button to activate the CF function, 2ND, CEC, in order to clear all the previous work incurred. Then, on the screen, it will pop up CF0. CF0 is the same thing with CO1. I use CO1 because it's easier to understand. And we press 0. Enter. Go down. CO1 is the same thing with CF1 that is right on the left side. It's also equal to 0. Enter. Go down. FO1 is equal to 19. 19. Enter. Go down. CO2 is the same thing with CF2 on the left side. It's 10,000. Enter. Go down. And FO2 is equal to 6. Enter. Now we need to activate the net present value function. We press the NPV button on the second row. The third button from left to right. It will ask us what is the interest rate. And as you can see, it's 7%. So we press 7. 7, enter, and we go down. Now we press CPT. And the answer pop up is equal to 13,179 USD. So the answer is PV equal to 13,179 US dollars. We are on the second question of the practice. I highly recommend you guys to stay focused on it, since it could be a question during the midterm exam. For this exercise, we are required to calculate the APR and the EIR. Let's read through it together. You have just purchased a new apartment. To finance the purchase, you've arranged for a 20-year mortgage loan for 70% of the $5 million purchase price. The money payment on this loan will be 25,075 USD. Part A, what is APR on this loan? Part B, what is the effective annual rate? Just a reminder, APR stands for annual percentage rate, or the quoted rate. The formula for APR is APR equal to periodic rate multiplied by the number period. So first of all, we need to find the periodic rate. How do we find the periodic rate? Let's analyze every number in the question. You know that this loan will take place for 20 years. Can we use 20 years for the APR formula? No, we cannot, because we are calculating the annual percentage rate. So this 20 years mortgage loan may be used later, but not for part A. 70% of 5 million purchase price. What does this mean? This means that we can find the borrowing cost. So imagine you buy a house. The cost is $5 million. You don't have enough money. So you go to the bank to borrow money. And the bank only let you borrow 70% of $5 million because it matches your need of money. You only need 70% of it. So the borrowing cost will be equal to $3.5 million. which is 70% of $5 million. So the first step is to find the borrowing cost. I write again. Borrowing cost equal to $3.5 million. Then the next number is $25,075, which is the monthly payment. Okay, monthly payment. This is very important. This means that the loan is calculated monthly payment. So for the APR formula, the number of the periods will be equal to 12. Since the monthly payment, because it is monthly calculated, and in 1 year, there are 12 months. So the number of periods per year annually is going to be 12. How to calculate the periodic rate then? As you can see, every month you have to pay $25,075 USD. To find the periodic rate, you have to take this number divided by the total borrowing cost, and that will be the periodic rate. In other words, it's the monthly payment rate. So the periodic rate is calculated by taking the monthly payment, which is $25,075, divided by 3.5 million USD. Using the calculator to compute, I came up with the answer of 0.72%. So the periodic rate is 0.72%. Therefore, the APR will be equal to 0.72% times 12. This is equal to 8.6%. So the final answer for part A will be 8.6%. Moving on to part B. For now, we have to calculate the EAR. As I have mentioned before, for this kind of question, using calculator is relatively easier for us to compute. If we do it manually, it will be much more difficult since we have to apply the formula, which is really complex to remember. So let's use the BI calculator together. So on the slide, I have already put the input. So you guys can basically type it in the calculator. Let's do it together. First step, we press 2ND and we choose the icon function. The nominal interest rate will be equal to 8.6%. And this one is the same thing with the APR, because the other way to call APR is nominal interest rate. Enter. And we go down 2 times. Then C over Y is the number of periods computed per year. Since in this exercise is monthly payment, so the number of periods will be equal to 12. 12, enter, and we go up. Finally, we have to compute the EFF, so we press CPT. The answer is 8.9%, 8.9472%. So the final answer for part B is approximately 8.9%. Question number 3. There are 2 investment plans. The first one is depositing $2,000 per year for 6.2% annual interest rate, while the second one is depositing $497 per quarter for 6% annual interest rate with quarterly compounding. Which plan is better in 40 years? For this question, I also highly recommend people to stay focused on it since it could be asked during the midterm exam. Let's analyze everything together. So there are two investment plans. The first plan I call Plan A. The first one is depositing $2,000 per year. So the payment will be equal to 2,000 USD. 6% annual interest rate. Therefore, the R will be equal to 6.2%. Finally, which plan is better in 40 years? And since because the first plan is annually calculated, so the number of periods is also equal to 40. So our duty, in order to know which plan is better, we have to know what is the future value. So, in other words, in the future, how much money do we have if we keep depositing $2,000 per year for 40 times in a row? So we have to find out what is the future value. However, at the current time, we don't know what is the future value. Therefore, the present value will be equal to 0. How about plan B? We deposit $497 per quarter. So first of all, the payment is very easy. It's equal to $497. The interest rate. Here, the interest rate is a bit different. In the exercise, they say that per quarter for 6% annual interest rate. So this 6% is annually calculated. However, this deposit is quarterly compounding. So the R has to be equal to 6 divided by 4. Why it is 4? Because 1 year we have 4 quarters. So to calculate the quarterly compound rate, we have to take 6%, which is the annual interest rate, divided by 4 in order to get the interest rate. This will be equal to 1.5%. How about the number of the periods? So you deposit for 40 years. However, every year has 4 quarters. So the total number of period here should be equal to 40 times 4, which is equal to 160. Similarly, PV, which is the present value, is also equal to 0. And our job is to find out what is the future value. In this exercise, it's a bit different from what we have practiced before. Instead of having to calculate the NPV or the EAR and the APR, now we have to use another function, which is computing future value. So I hope you guys will pay full attention into it because it's very, very important. First of all, for plan A, what are the inputs for the calculator? First, we pressed 40, which is the period. Then we press the button N on the third row. Then we press 6.2 and the second button on the third row, which is I over Y. It will apply the interest rate. Then 0 and PV. Then 2000 PMT. Lastly, we press CPT and FV. On the screen, the future value will pop up with a minus sign, which is minus 325,524. However, we have to cancel out the minus sign, and 325,524 USD will be the future value for the Plan A investment. How about plan B? So similar thing. First is the number period 160 and the interest rate is 1.5. So we press 1.5 I over Y. 0 is the present value. And the payment is $497. Compute future value. The answer is 325,649 USD. So 325,649 USD. Lastly, we have to compare which plan is better. Take a look at these two numbers, future value of plan A and future value of plan B. We can clearly see that plan B has higher future value than plan A. So therefore, the final answer is plan B should be our investment criteria, and we choose plan B as our investment. So this is the end of today's practice. Hopefully you guys have gained valuable insight about Chapter 5 discusses valuation. See you again in next video.